Well, the circle is a circle drawn on something infinite. And what's inside the circle is absolutely divine, just as everything outside the circle is divine. And if you want an even clearer picture, imagine instead of a circle, imagine a bubble. What's on the inside of the bubble? Same gosh darn air that's on the outside of the bubble, right? It's all one air, except that there's this gossamer film of nothingness almost. But it's just enough to give definition that where you can say there's an inside and an outside, right? But the inside and the outside are all the same. So you've got to value your best sense of yourself without believing that that's all there is of you, and without believing that the boundary is actual and that there's nothing else to you but what's on the inside of it. There is no such thing as an ego. Even though we can speak of it, it is an element, you might say. It is a dynamic that isn't your friend, it isn't your ally. It does keep you separate from the wholeness of yourself and from experiencing unity with everything. But it's not strong. It's not aggressive. It can't do anything to you. It's the merest suggestion of separation. I want you to keep this image of the soap bubble with you long after this gathering. It's the merest suggestion of a division between the air inside and the air outside, right? That's all the ego is. If that boundary is believed, if you make commitment to it, if you become preoccupied with it, and you feel small, and then you become defensive because you're afraid, and you add more soap to the water that makes the bubble, you're using your time poorly. And you're also contributing to the ongoing presence of this sheer gossamer wisp of a division between the air on the inside and the air outside. You see? But the ego is not your enemy. It's just a soap bubble, or it's just a line forming a circle that seems to separate the paper that's inside the circle from the paper that's outside the circle that the circle is drawn on. Whatever you do from inside the circle, from whatever you do from within your belief that all there is to you is what's inside the circle, does not have power. Because you don't exist that way. And your misperception, your belief about your tininess can never be the basis for authorizing an event. It can never be responsible for being creative. That's why you must be willing to become quiet enough or yielding enough, even through the use of reason, to arrive at a point where you are so convicted of the allness of God that you're able to relax and yield without thinking, without trying to be in control. Because that's what makes the bubble pop, or the line fade or begin to break up and become permeable so that you can feel the influx of this love that you are loved with. The moment you get a little fresh air from outside the bubble, you realize that the air you were breathing was real air, but it just was stale. And then that experience causes you to be aware that that of you which was inside the bubble was absolutely divine, absolutely innocent, absolutely perfect as God is being you at that moment. And you're redeemed in your mind and in your experience, renewed with fresh air, with the more of you that's always been on the outside. And as you let that happen and that renewal occur, the bubble pops or the line simply, totally fades. So this best sense of yourself that each of you has a best sense of yourself, no matter how lousy it might be. Your best sense of yourself is the presence of what you divinely are, illegitimately bound by a gossamer boundary that can pop as easily as a bubble pops. It's not a glass ball 3 inches thick. It's a soap bubble, almost ethereal, substanceless. It doesn't take much to pop the bubble. It doesn't take much to dissolve the ego boundary that has you bound. It really doesn't. How do you do it? Prayer. Reach outside your bubble. Be willing to set aside your fixation on your problem long enough to say, God, you might not even have to say anything else, because that one reaching out, that act of reaching out, that just saying God and giving your attention in the direction of someplace other than your ego boundary, that may well be enough to to penetrate the bubble so that God can register with you and transform and renew your mind so that you have a perspective that is true. And once you have the true perspective, you have the healing, or your client has the healing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hands. Right here.
Hello, Raj.
Good afternoon.
I actually have a couple of questions if there's time for it. One is about an experience that I had a long time ago. I know it was a joining. Happened in 1989. And it changed my life.
It did indeed.
It's still the actual experience of it happening. I've always wondered about it.
Stop wondering about. When you say wondering about, you mean questioning or wanting more understanding about. Instead of wondering about it, Just stand in wonder of it.
Okay.
That's the way you let the meaning in fully. Wondering about it will just delay. It will delay the experience that standing in wonder about it will let in. I will tell you all again. Waking up isn't about understanding anything. It's about experiencing something. You're not going to understand reality, you're going to experience it. And when you experience it, you're going to know. Understanding requires a linear expression of words and thoughts and ideas. Knowing is wordless, and you just know it, and you know it totally. And if you know it totally and you try to explain it to anybody, you know it's going to take eternity. Because what you know is so full. And you know it all now, not on a timeline, not on a line of time spread out. You can appropriately think in a linear way to get yourself to the point where you can have enough confidence that there not only is a God, but this God is love and is therefore trustworthy, so that you can let go into what God is. But you know what? Don't make the process too important. Paul was remembering yesterday that when the children were little, he used to, if they were doing something, he would tell them to stop. If they didn't stop, he'd say that's once. And the kids knew that it wasn't up until he said that's 5 times, that's 5. And one day, Paul and his family went to visit somebody else, and that father had a similar procedure, except that he only went up to 3. And Paul realized he had wasted a lot of time. So you get it? Don't make your process too important. You could probably go to college or university for your doctoral degree. You could give explanation and definition to this process that you are using. And it could take you quite a number of years to give definition to it. But you also can just sit down and do it, which you're doing. The quickest prayer is, "Thy will be done." And mean it when you say those words. When you say, "Thy will be done," you are acquiescing to, you are yielding to not your will, but some other will, right? You are forfeiting the right you think you have to exercise your own will. Well, of course, fearful ego thoughts say, well, you never know what you're yielding into. It could be the devil. It could be an evil spirit that has gone on before you and just waiting to prey on you. P-R-E-Y. But you know what? The simple fact is that ignorant ego mentalities are unable to communicate with each other mentally. The boundaries are as absolute for one as they are for the other. And as I said this morning, she could sit here and think all the most horrible thoughts she wanted to about Penelope in the other room, including that her arms would fall off, and Penelope's arms would still stay right where they were, because it is impossible to communicate mentality to mentality through an ego boundary. That is an absolute fact. So if you are going to say, "Thy will be done," and yield, the only thing that can possibly penetrate and connect with you is that which is awake, or God Himself. And then when the penetration occurs, you will know. You will know. You will say, "I understand." But if somebody asks you what you understand, it'll take ages to tell them what you understand. The understanding is really a knowing that is whole in the instant. So stand in wonder about the experience, but stop wondering about it. Continue with your other question.
Well, one thing, whenever I allow myself to be in my heart, I get like this, and I drown. Will I ever get past that?
You will. It will probably come out in the form of laughter, joy, because what you're experiencing is joy. But joy is very deep. It's not frivolous, it's not surface. Joy is as deep as infinity and as big as infinity. And you have tears because you're having a meaningful experience. As you become more defenseless, it will begin to come out as laughter, as radiancy in your face, as light in your eyes, as youthing, becoming more and more beautiful, as healing. Oh, be so glad that you have evidence here as wet eyes of the fact that you are soul.
I am grateful. I'm not always comfortable with it, but I am grateful.
Better to have wet eyes than a hard heart.
Absolutely. One last question. I had I'm going to say experience because I don't think it was a dream, a few nights ago that I don't even remember it clearly, except that it was showing me how important this time is now. The words aren't good, but I don't know how else to say it. It's showing me really clearly how important it is to be involved in this time. That our awakening is not sometime in the future, but it really is happening right now. And could you speak to that a little bit?
What more do you need to know?
Okay.
I just want to reaffirm that this important time is not a time of conflict. It's a time of waking up, not having a worse dream. I encourage all of you to indulge in shameless curiosity. Curious to see anywhere, anytime, some evidence of enlightenment concretely manifesting in the world. It's an important time to be living in, as though you had a choice. It's a wonderful time to be living in, because there's the actual promise of fruition, you might say. Usually when someone says it's an important time to be living in, it's like, oh dear, gonna be heavy duty, huh? And then everyone becomes defended against whatever is important that's happening, or begins to look for evidences of negativity. We know the end time is near, when there are wars and rumors of wars, and brother is killing brother, and friend is slighting friend, and enemies are abounding. You can count on it, the end times are near. Aren't you glad the end times are near? Tain't so, tain't so, tain't so. Now I'll really scare you. The end time is near because you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and everyone in this room and everyone on the globe is going to change, is going to let your mind be renewed. You can't be forced to do it, so don't be afraid that you will have to do it. But that is what's going to happen. Well, I'll watch Georgette and Billy and Bob do it, and then I'll do it. Okay. But do it you will. And why am I saying this? Because don't stand on the sidelines and let George do it and everyone else do it. Don't just give all of this lip service. It's about the transforming of your mind and your mind and your mind. And the invitation of the transformation. The invitation for the boundary, the ego, the circle, the ego boundary to begin to break up, so that that of you which is on the outside can commingle with that of you on the inside, until you have the conscious experience of it all being one unity. Why? Why would it be important to experience unity consciousness? Well, not because it's being at one with God. It's because in unity consciousness, there is no conflict. There are no opposites. There is no polarization. There is no possibility of the experience of force. And that which embodies no element of conflict is pure. And that which is pure is innocent. That which is innocent is guiltless. That which is innocent is free of that which plagues every single one of you down very deeply into yourself. And it's this innocence that God's love renders utterly invalid if you will let it in. You all are utterly innocent. If you are free of guilt, you are free of fear. If you are free of guilt, you are free of self-preservation, self-defense. You are free of all of these energy-consuming activities. And when you experience your innocence, it's inseparable from experiencing joy at existing. How come you can understand? How come you can understand the words I'm saying even if you don't have the experience? Because you have had the experience. That's why you can understand what I'm saying. You all have had the experience. And this experience is right on the other side of this gossamer, filmy, flimsy bubble. I want you to understand something else too. That of you which is inside the bubble that is utterly divine wants to experience itself in its totality, wants to get beyond the bubble, and that of you which is on the outside of the bubble is intent upon joining with the air that's on the inside of the bubble. So, it's not all up to you. But every single one of you can keep adding soap to the solution. Which extends the life of the bubble. This flimsy, almost non-existent something that forms a boundary that you can't quite see, but which does isolate the air inside from the air outside. I hope you are getting the picture that this ego that you're trying to overcome or disregard is just about as non-existent as it can be and yet still be seen. You see, it's not a force in your life. It's actually something that you maintain in order to keep the safety zone that you call the interior of the bubble.